Standing at 4 floors and 82,000 square feet, Chiquola Mill stands over Honeypath. The mill would open its doors in 1903 before being shut down in 2003, operating for a century. The mill stands as a grim reminder of the uprising of 1934, which over time gained the moniker Bloody Thursday. In 1934, the United Textile Workers of America organized a strike to protest against the low wages and poor working conditions which plagued most textile mills of the time. This set in motion a chain of events that would lead to one of the worst labor massacres in South Carolina state history.
Life working in the mills began at age 14, and work days would typically last for 11 hours. After a long day of working at the mill, families would shop at the company store where mill owners charged more for goods than stores outside the mill villages. This was common practice for mills at the time. The prosperity of mill villages remained closely tied to the economic health of the textile industry. When trouble hit management, it quickly filtered down to the workers.
The Great Depression exacerbated the poor working conditions and low wages the mill workers faced. Mill owners sought to increase their profits during times of depression and lower the prices. The paternalistic image fathered by the companies gave way to more modern industrial relations. The owners and managers stressed technology and performance over a sense of family. To make matters worse, South Carolina mill workers were frustrated with the Brewer Board and Governor Blackwood because mill owners were not implementing the textile code that the NRA was encouraging. In 1934, the board that administered the textile code revealed a strategy that was approved by the National Recovery Administration, or NRA, but without the United Textile Workers of America's knowledge, to reduce textile mill overproduction by cutting hours and wages. Mill hands saw the pay cut as going too far.
300 men and women who worked at the mills gathered to protest low wages, reduced hours, and poor conditions. The strikes were planned to take place on Labor Day. However, some southern mills, like Chiquola Mill, did not get word in time and began their strikes later in the week. A group of armed union workers known as flying squadrons went to mills across the upstate and persuaded mill workers to join the strike. If the mill workers showed any hesitation or reluctance, the flying squadrons would cut off power and break down doors. The squadrons fanned the flames of the textile strike.
On September 6, 1934, a flying squadron finally arrived at Chiquola Mill and began gathering workers to begin a strike. Before their arrival, the mayor of Honeypath and several armed lawmen prepared and readied their defenses, as they already knew of previous strikes incited by the same flying squadron. As the workers were gathered, the mill superintendent and Honeypath's mayor, Dan Beecham, even placed a machine gun from World War I atop the mill, aimed at the gathering crowd.
As the flying squadron arrived and joined the workers at the mill gate, a scuffle ensued between the two sides. That all changed when, without warning, a pistol shot rang out, and it was answered by a volley of gunfire from the lawmen protecting the mill. The result is comparable to the infamous Boston Massacre. Incited by an unknown source, authorities fired into a crowd of people. 6 unarmed workers were killed instantly, and a 7th died a few days later. All were shot in the back as they tried to flee the violence. To this day, who fired the first shot remains a mystery.
Following the violence, 11 men were arrested and charged with murder, but all of them were later acquitted of their charges. Mayor Beecham later issued a public statement saying that he was not present during the massacre because he had returned home for breakfast. Decades later, research confirmed that he was indeed present and in fact had given the order to fire, an accusation that was made at the time as well. During the trial, 2 eyewitnesses also testified that they had seen Beecham shooting at protesters. Beecham arrested them both on charges of perjury. A funeral was held for all the victims near the mill. The funeral services were not held in any of the churches because the churches were owned by the mill. The funeral was attended by nearly 10,000 people.
Governor Blackwood declared that a state of insurrection existed in South Carolina and deployed the National Guard to quell further violence. The governor, as well as South Carolina's elites and the middle class, took the side of the mill owners, requesting that martial law be established. Chiquola Mill reopened that following Monday and was one of 3 mills in South Carolina to reopen with military protection.
The workers involved in the strike afterwards either moved away or returned to work at the mill. Those who returned to work were forced to denounce the union, and a gag order was issued to prevent discussion of the revolt. The effects of this gag order are felt to this day, as the community has only just begun to publicly revisit the tragedy in recent years. A memorial to those killed in the massacre was erected in neighboring Dogwood Park in 1995. Dan Beecham's grandson, Frank Beecham, helped work for the monument and attended its dedication. The mill itself sits decrepit and abandoned as a grim reminder of the loss of life that took place there all those years ago.